It wasn't the first time my stepmom had done something to hurt me, but this time it felt different. There was something particularly cruel about the way she stood there, arms crossed, smirking, as if she'd just won some twisted game. The smell of burnt fabric hung in the air, sharp and acrid, and in front of me was what was left of my wedding dress, a dress I'd spent months picking out, dreaming about, and saving for. Now it was reduced to a pile of ash and charred lace in our backyard fire pit. My heart dropped as I stared at the smoldering remnants, and for a moment I couldn't move. This wasn't just an attack on me. It was an attack on everything I held dear, everything I was trying to build for my future. My stepmom's voice broke the heavy silence. "You think you're so much better than me," she sneered, her tone dripping with venom. "Well, let's see how perfect your little fairy tale wedding is now." And just like that, she turned and walked back inside, leaving me rooted to the ground, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't new territory with her. My stepmom had been a part of my life since I was a teenager, stepping into the picture after my mother passed away. At first, I tried to give her a chance. I really did. I wanted to believe she could be a part of our family, maybe even bring some happiness back into our lives. But she made it clear from the start that she wasn't interested in building bridges. To her, I was competition, an inconvenient reminder of the life my father had before she came along. She found every way she could to undermine me, whether it was making snide comments, dismissing my achievements, or twisting situations to make me look bad. But burning my wedding dress, that was a new low, even for her. I'd poured so much love and excitement into planning my wedding, and my dress was a big part of that. It wasn't extravagant or designer, but it was mine. I'd worked extra shifts, skipped nights out with friends, and scrimped wherever I could to afford it. Every time I tried it on, I imagined walking down the aisle in it, the way my fiancé's face would light up when he saw me. It was a symbol of everything I was looking forward to, a new chapter, a fresh start, and a happiness she couldn't touch. And now, she'd destroyed it. I wanted to scream, to cry, to march back into the house and demand answers. But then I stopped myself. That's what she wanted. She wanted a reaction, a meltdown, proof that she could still get under my skin, and I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I took a deep breath, turned around, and walked away. I didn't say a word, but in my mind, the wheels were already turning. If she thought this was the end of the story, she was sorely mistaken. The next few days were a blur. I stayed quiet around her, careful not to let on just how much she'd rattled me. In fact, I went out of my way to appear unaffected, humming while I cleaned up the kitchen or smiling when she walked past. It drove her mad. I could see it in the way she glared at me, her mouth set in a tight line. But behind my calm facade, I was planning. I wasn't just going to get even. I was going to turn her world upside down. First, I needed to replace the dress. I reached out to the boutique where I'd originally purchased it, explaining what had happened. They were sympathetic, but there was bad news. That particular gown had been discontinued. I wouldn't be able to get the exact same one again. My heart sank at the thought, but then I realized something. I didn't need the same dress. If she wanted to ruin my dream wedding, I was going to make sure it turned out more beautiful, more perfect, and more unforgettable than ever. If that meant starting over, so be it. I scoured bridal shops, online stores, and even secondhand listings until I found it, the dress that felt like it was made for me. It wasn't the one I'd originally chosen, but in a way, it was better. Every time I looked at it, I was reminded of my resilience, my determination to rise above her pettiness. The fire she started had destroyed my first dress, but it had also lit a fire in me, a fire she couldn't extinguish. But replacing the dress was just the beginning. As I moved forward with my wedding plans, I decided I wasn't going to let her presence overshadow my happiness. For years, she had played the role of the antagonist in my life, trying to control me through manipulation and spite. But now, I was taking back control. Every decision I made, every flower arrangement, every playlist selection, every invitation sent, was a declaration that my life was mine, not hers to meddle in. And then, as I was going through old photos and keepsakes one evening, I stumbled upon something that stopped me in my tracks, a document tucked away in a forgotten box in my closet. It was a copy of my mother's will, a will that detailed her wishes for our family and her belongings after her passing. As I read through it, my heart raced. There it was, in black and white. The house my stepmom and I lived in wasn't hers at all. It belonged to me. My mother had left it to me, and somehow my stepmom had managed to take control of it, making me believe I was a guest in my own home. My hands trembled as I held the paper, the weight of its implications sinking in. This wasn't just about a burned wedding dress anymore. It was about reclaiming everything she had taken from me. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to make sure she could never manipulate, control, or hurt me again. And with this discovery, I had all the power I needed to do it. After discovering my mother's will, the next steps were clear. I immediately reached out to a lawyer who confirmed that the house was legally mine and that my stepmom had no rightful claim to it. Her manipulations and fraudulent actions were exposed for what they truly were, leaving her with no room to hide. I felt a rush of determination as we moved forward with the legal process, knowing that I was finally taking back what belonged to me, not just the house, but my sense of control and justice. The court proceedings were tense, but the evidence in my mother's will was undeniable. When the judge ruled in my favor, declaring the house legally mine, I felt an incredible sense of relief. My stepmom, on the other hand, looked utterly defeated. She had spent years trying to control and belittle me, but now the power she held over me was gone. She was ordered to vacate the property immediately, and within days she was gone, leaving behind the remnants of her failed schemes. As I walked back into the house, the weight of the past began to lift. I reclaimed each room, redecorating and transforming it into a space that reflected my own identity and the love my mother had poured into our home. The backyard, where she had burned my wedding dress, became a serene garden filled with flowers, a space of healing and growth. The final chapter of this journey came on my wedding day. Surrounded by friends and family, I walked down the aisle wearing a new dress that symbolized resilience and a fresh start. My stepmom was nowhere to be seen, and for the first time in years I felt free, free of her bitterness, manipulation, and control. Looking back, I realized that her act of burning my wedding dress wasn't just an attack on me. It was the spark that ignited my fight for justice. She thought she could break me, but instead she showed me the strength I didn't know I had. Reclaiming my home and my happiness became the ultimate victory, and now, every time I step through the front door, I'm reminded that no one can take away what's truly mine.